Stream 1 pipeline from Russia has Europe on the edge all over again. In the latest, the Russian energy giant Gazprom says it will further reduce gas supplies through the pipeline to Germany to just 20% capacity later this week. Gazprom says that flows would fall to 33 million cubic meters per day, half the current already reduced level. Though Moscow has cited its own reasons related to the turbine serviced in Canada, it is clear that Moscow is tightening its squeeze on Europe. Germany says it saw no technical reasons for the latest reduction and that the Russian President Vladimir Putin is playing a game. Europe already had doubts over whether Russia would resume gas supplies. Before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Germany relied on Russia to provide 55% of its overall natural gas needs. It has cut that share to 30% over the past few months. But it is scrambling to save enough fuel to ensure sufficient stores to get through the winter. Russia supplies 40% of Europe's natural gas. This is the Nord Stream pipeline. It was completed in 2011 and runs from Vyborg in Leningrad to Lubmin in Germany. The Nord Stream 1 pipeline transports 55 billion cubic meters of gas annually. Just to put that in perspective, Europe requires more than 100 billion cubic meters of gas each year. So clearly, Nord Stream 1 makes up for a significant amount of that supply. This gas is used for heating homes, factories and offices, especially in the harsh, long European winters. It is also used for power generation across the continent. So if Moscow completely turns off the tap for Nord Stream 1, it spells trouble for Europe. So as Russia uses the gas supplies as a weapon to counter Western sanctions, the European Union is trying to reduce reliance on Russian gas. On Tuesday, the bloc reached a weakened deal to cut gas consumption by 15% amid fears that Putin could turn off the taps. But some member states have been offered exemptions. Spain, Portugal, Ireland, Cyprus, Malta, which are not connected to the network, were given reprieves from the mandatory cuts in case of a winter energy crisis. Hungary, which is trying to purchase more gas from Moscow, was the only EU nation to officially vote against the deal. Europe is already sweltering under a heat wave. Countries in the continent are aware that they do not have enough gas for winter. The continent is looking for alternative suppliers of gas. For now, Europe is asking people to save energy. A shortfall in gas could be detrimental for the continent. It could trigger an absolute chaos. Energy costs would skyrocket, millions would deal with power outages, and it could even trigger a recession across the Eurozone. We are now available in your country.
Shalom, 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 shalom. First, I want to give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash, and double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who are leading this word in truth and in spirit and in sincerity. Salutations to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters that have been edified by the truth of the Bible, of the scriptures, of who we are, the true children of Israel, the Israelites, and who the other nations are. Today's edification, as you can see, it's called Russia tightens the noose on the EU, which is the beast. Today, Russia announced that it's going to tighten the noose on the EU nations, which the Bible refers to in the book of Revelations as the beast, as we all know. The reincarnation of the fourth beast in the book of Daniel chapter 7 and all throughout the book of Revelations. As you can see on the screen, it says US officials say biggest fear has come true. So this was their biggest fear. So they've admitted it now. has come true as Russia cuts gas supplies to Europe. So Russia has told the European Union as of Wednesday, which would be tomorrow, today's Tuesday, as of tomorrow, the 27th of July 2022, Russia is going to cut the gas supply to Europe right down to 20%, which makes total sense because, we're coming to the close of the month's time. Well, in a couple of months' time, probably we could say. 2 months' time, we're coming to the end of summer, right? So Russia says, and it makes sense because it means they can't store no gas in preparation for the winter. Now, normally when we have such a hot summer, we normally get the complete opposite for the winter. We get a complete freezing cold winter when we've had such a hot summer. And we've had a really, really, really abnormally hot summer. So I can expect a freezing winter ahead of us. So the US officials say their biggest fear has come true as Russia cuts gas supplies to Europe. All praises to Yahweh Shimi Shai. Now, this was the CNN. We just looked at the WION reporter. Now, this is this CNN reporter. And let's hear what she has to say. All right? Let me just read a little bit of this article.
15% voluntary reduction in the consumption of natural gas this winter. It comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warns that Vladimir Putin is using gas supplies as a weapon.
Really difficult negotiation. Even despite the concession regarding the Nord Stream turbine, Russia is not going to resume gas supplies to European countries, as it is contractually obligated to do. All this is done by Russia deliberately to make it as difficult as possible for Europeans to prepare for winter. This is an overt gas war that Russia is waging against a united Europe. This is exactly how it should be perceived.
See, he calls it a gas war, right? You know the funny thing about all of this? When Russia cuts off gas and oil supplies to these devils, they say it's blackmail. It's a gas war. Russia is blackmailing the European Union, trying to break up the European Union. When they do the complete opposite, when they do the exact same thing to Russia by cutting Russia out of the global financial systems and stopping them from selling certain goods and importing certain goods on the international market, they call it sanctions. That's what the beast calls it. The European Union calls it sanctions. When they are putting rules and regulations, bylaws to stop Russia from buying and selling on the international market and using the international financial system called the SWIFT system, they call it sanctions. When Russia puts the squeeze on them, they call it blackmail. This is how you know you're dealing with the devil. They call it blackmail. When Russia puts a squeeze on them, these devils in the European Union and America, they call it blackmail. But when they're putting the squeeze on Russia, they call it sanctions. This is how you know that you're dealing with the devil. These people are the living devil, truly. These Edomites. And this is why Russia has such disdain for those Edomites in the West. I spoke about this the other day. The Russians have such disdain for those Edomites in the West because of the hypocrisy. They call what they're doing sanctions, but what Russia's doing, they call it blackmail. When these Edomites invade a country to take down, the democratically elected leader, they call it a humanitarian, we're there for humanitarian reasons. When Russia does it, they said, oh, they've invaded a country, they've broken the country's sovereignty, they've done this, they've done that. But when these devils do it from NATO, when the beast does it, when he invades Libya and Syria and, Iraq and every other country that the beast has invaded over the last 50 years, being led by America, It's all about saving people. So it's all to do with humanitarian. Or we're trying to get rid of this dictator or that dictator. But Russia does it now to Ukraine. And they say, oh, they've invaded them. They've invaded a sovereign country. But that's how the beast thinks. But listen to what she says anyway. Get a bit more understanding of these devils.
There's now a gas war within a broader energy war, Claire. As I mentioned, EU leaders effectively forced to agree a conservation deal today because they've heard now there's going to be far more capacity cuts for the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, and it limits their ability to build capacity ahead of the winter, which is the crucial challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why today's edification is called Russia. Russia puts the noose on the EU, the beast. We're going to see. Yeah, I tell you, boy, Russia's got all the cards to play for these devils.
The urgency of this really, really stepped up in the past 24 hours when Russia announced that it was going to cut the capacity of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline from where it was at about 40% of its full potential down to about 20%. That will take effect Wednesday morning. Like, forced to agree, I think, is the right phrase here. We've seen this before in the case of the oil embargo. But in that case, it took 2 months, almost 2 months to push that deal through with exceptions. In this case, they've done it in 5 days. It will be a voluntary cut of 15% in terms of gas demand between the beginning of August and March of 2023. All countries have agreed to that. Now, if the EU triggers what's called a union alert in the case of a risk of severe shortages of gas in the winter, then there will be exceptions. Not all members will be subject to mandatory cuts of 15%. It's things like the Baltic states, where the electricity grid isn't connected to the broader EU grid. Ireland, which is not connected to the broader EU pipeline system, they will be exempted. There'll also be derogations where people can adapt the targets. For example, if gas is a critical input for some industries. So there certainly are exceptions. It is diluted to some extent, but they did get it through. However, there are still major concerns that the variable here is the weather this winter. Will it be a really cold winter, and what impact will that have on their ability to build up their storage?
Oh, we're going to find out. We are going to find out. Because like I said, we've only got probably a couple of months, 6 weeks left of this summer. So when it says there, US officials say biggest fear has come true as Russia cuts gas supplies to Europe, this is their leader's surprise. Washington. The Biden administration is working furiously, I love that, furiously behind the scenes to keep European allies united against Russia as Moscow further cuts its energy supplies to the European Union. You see, that's what Russia, and I'll tell you what, when Russia totally turns off those taps, boy, that European Union is going to be so much more divided than what it is today. So little by little, Russia's turning down the taps, turning down the gas, little by little, dividing them, cutting the oil supply, little by little, shutting off the wheat and the grains to the west, little by little, not giving them access to the sunflower oil that they need, all of the wheat that they need to come from the Black Sea, little by little, while they're getting more divided, more divided, more divided. So it says here, prompting panic on both sides of the Atlantic over potentially severe gas shortages heading into winter, US officials say. On Monday, Russia's state-owned gas company, as we just heard, Gazprom, said it would cut flows through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline to Germany in half to just 20% of its capacity. A US official said the move was retaliation for Western sanctions. You see, they call it retaliation. They don't look at what Russia's doing as sanctions on them because the West can't see themselves being sanctioned. Oh no, we're above sanctions. We are not allowed to be sanctioned in the West. The only people allowed to be sanctioned are you guys in Africa, you guys in the Middle East, and you guys in Russia and China and Asia. You're the only people that can be sanctioned. But us Edomites in Europe and in America and Australia, we're not allowed to be sanctioned. We're above sanctions. So they call what they're doing as legitimate sanctions and what Russia's doing as retaliation and blackmail. The devil, boy, I tell you. Says as a US official said the move was retaliation for Western sanctions and that it put the West in uncharted territory when it comes to whether Europe will have enough gas to get through the winter. They're not going to have enough gas. Russia's going to break them. Russia's going to break this European Union. In response to the turmoil, the White House dispatched Presidential Coordinator for Global Energy, Amos Hochstein, to Europe on Tuesday. Officials said he will be traveling to Paris and Brussels to discuss contingency planning with the US-EU Energy Task Force created in March, 1 month after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So, these devils are pulling their hair out, completely pulling their hair out. But they've lost control of the narrative. And you know what's going to come from this, isn't it? The less gas they can receive, the gas and oil prices will keep on going up, which means inflation will keep on going up, which means the general public in those countries are going to be what? What's going to happen? There's going to be uproars amongst the people even more. I keep saying to you, we keep watching what's going on in places like Sri Lanka, where they've run out of fuel and petrol and diesel and gas, and they're looking at that like it's some country far away. Oh, this can't happen to us in Europe. Oh, not in France. Oh, of course not. Oh, it can't happen to us in Germany. Oh, no, that's Germany. Oh, it can't happen to us in Spain or Portugal or England. It's coming to the West. The exact same thing you see happening in Sri Lanka is coming to the West. Russia's going to break them. It's going to cause the people to turn against their governments and their leaders. This is the bear. The bear has got hold of the feet. He is the feet of the beast because he's going to bring these devils down, ultimately. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's an absolutely beautiful thing to see. Shalom to the Akiyams on the comic board. Shalom to my beloved brother, Amawada Bud. Shalom, brother. He's pulling them apart. Pulling them apart. But this is everything that we see happening is Bible prophecy. Russia has to do these, you see, all these antagonistic things that's going on between Esau. I've said this many times before. The Most High is using Esau, the Edomites, to bring down the Edomites before he turns up and brings down all of the Edomites and all of the other heathen nations across the world. So we just got to sit back and watch this all unfold in front of our eyes, what's going on. Because like the article says, the Biden administration is working furiously behind the scenes to keep the European allies united. I tell you, boy, Russia just keeps on pulling a trump card on these devils, boy, and they just don't know. And remember, the Russians are Edomites as well, but the Lord is using them. Revelation 13, right? This is the beast, right? The beast from the sea. Now, John the Revelator actually saw a beast, but this beast was symbolic for who? For the European Union and NATO. The head of NATO is America. So when it says there, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and I saw a beast, John the Revelator actually saw a beast, a physical beast, rise up out of the sea. But that beast, was symbolic for who? The European Union. The 10 horns, the reincarnation of the Roman Empire. The head of the beast is who? The dragon, America. Having 7 heads. Having 7 heads. The 7 heads represented what? The 7 empires. Right? The 7 Edomite. The 7 Edomite empires. That's what the 7 heads represented, basically. Yeah? These are like Esau's 7 empires, going right back there, the Greeks, the Germania Minor, Germania Major, the Romans, who's that one? The Romans. You've got the Spanish Empire, the French Empire, and then the British Empire. Having 7 heads and 10 horns. The 10 horns is symbolic for the European Union. Remember, when we speak about the treaty that they put together, it was called the Treaty of Rome, all goes back. This is why it was called the Treaty of Rome. Yeah, the Treaty of Rome, the European Parliament, which was established in 1957. This is what it all goes back to. This is what John the Revelator is speaking about. This is why they call it the Treaty of Rome. It was signed in 1957. The treaty established the European Economic Community. That's what it was first called. That's what the beast named itself, the EEC. And the treaty establishing the European Atomic Energy for both new communities. Decisions were taken by the Council and the proposal from the Commission. The Parliamentary Assembly is to be assembled and to give its opinions in the Council. The Assembly increased in size to 142 members. The European Parliamentary Assembly held its first session the following year on the 19th of March, 1958. This is what the Treaty of Rome was all about. This is who it represents, all right? As you can see here, these were the countries that established it. The treaty was signed on the 25th of March, 1957 by Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and the West Germany. Then Britain joined, Spain, all these other countries that continued to join. The treaty, it says the treaty establishing the European Community and now continuing under the name, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. It remains one of the two most important treaties in what is now the European Union. That's how important this thing is. But this was meant to happen. Why do you think it's called the Treaty of Rome? Because this is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire. This is Esau here in his element. That's them there signing the Treaty of Rome. That's them there. These are all Edomites. Edomites. Beautiful. So when we go back to Revelation, this is what this is referring to. The 10 horns, and upon these horns were 10 crowns, the Treaty of Rome that was signed, which this is symbolic. This represents the European Union, the 10 horns and the 10 crowns. And upon his heads, the name was blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. Goes back to what? To the Greek Empire. What did Alexander the Great wear? He wore a leopard skin when he was conquering the known world at the time with his 4 generals, Ptolemy, Seleucus, Lasameus, and who's the other one that begins with C? It's gone out of my head. Antigonus, sorry. A begins with. Antigonus is the other one. Those were Alexander the Great's 4 generals. Alexander the Great, he would wear a leopard skin over him. All right? He would cover himself with a leopard skin. So when this is, I saw it like unto a leopard. Let me see if I can just quickly show you. This is all, it all goes back. There you go. That's what Alexander the Great wore, had on his horse. This is how he traveled. See these pictures here? See how they depicted it in the movie? That's the movie Alexandra with Colin Farrell. And they're showing you the leopard skin. All right? And this is the actual movie that depicted the story of Alexander the Great's life. It was a very detailed, it was about nearly a 3-hour movie, very detailed on the life of Alexander the Great. And that's the leopard skin on his horse. And this was the beginning of the Greeks' empire conquering the known world at the time. Oh boy. That's why when it says here, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, because he was the first Edomite conqueror of the known world at the time, was Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Creep. And his feet was like as the feet of a bear, which symbolically, metaphorically, is talking about Russia. Russia is the bear. Russia, because Russia is gonna take down the European Union. So if you say Russia, the bear, as you can see here, the Russian bear is a widespread symbol for Russia, used in cartoons, articles, and dramatic plays since as early as the 16th century, and relating alike to the Russian Empire, the Russian Provisional Government, and the Russian Republic, the Soviet Union, and the present-day Russian Federation. The Russian bear, as you can see, is a widespread symbol, generally of Eurasian brown bear, for Russia, used in cartoons, articles, dramatic plays since as early as the 16th century, relating alike to the Russian Empire and the Russian Provisional Government and the Russian Republic and the Soviet Union and the present-day Russian Federation. So you can see, that's symbolic. This is what it's talking about. So when it says here, which I saw, and the beast, and like I said, John the Revelator actually saw a beast, was like unto a leopard, which is symbolic for the Greek Empire and Alexander the Great. Remember, these are these Europeans that we are today. Today's empire is a reincarnation of the Greek, the Roman, and parts of the Babylonian Empire. And his feet was as the feet of a bear. Why? Because the feet, if you grab someone by the feet and pull them by the feet, that's how you can put them to the ground. If you was to run at someone and you grab them by their ankles, by their feet, and you pull it, or if you kick them by their feet, that would put them to the ground. Well, the reason why Russia is the feet, the bear is the feet, because it's the Russians that's going to take down the 10 crowns, the 10 horns, and the 7 heads. And his mouth has a mouth of a lion. The lion is what? Great Britain, which is part of NATO. The beast, remember, the beast is NATO. That's the military might. And its economic might is the European Union. The head of the beast is who? America. And the dragon gave him his power. The dragon is symbolic for America. Esau, Edom, the Edomites in America gave the beast his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death. That's when the Roman Empire went away around the 1st century AD to 2nd century AD, being ruled by Edomites, which was the western part of the Roman Empire. That's when he was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. When was the beast's deadly wound healed? During the Renaissance. During the Renaissance. During the Renaissance, if I can spell this right. During the Renaissance, the revival of European art and literature under the influence of classical models in the 14th to 16th century, right? The Renaissance, European, this is when these devils came from the Caucasus Mountains and came back down into Europe roughly during the 14th century, all right? What's this here? The Renaissance, French, you see that? Rebirth, because that's what it means. The word Renaissance, go away, means rebirth period in European civilization immediately following the Middle Ages. That's when we was ruling Europe under the Byzantine Empire, all right, the Israelites. Following the Middle Ages, they refer to it as the Dark Ages as well, these devils, because it was ruled by people of color, in particularly the Israelites, which ruled the Byzantine Empire, and conventionally held to have been characterized by a surge of interest in classical scholarship and values. These devils ain't got no values. The Renaissance also witnessed the discovery and exploration of new continents. That's when these devils went to the Americas. The substitution of the Copernican for the Ptolemaic, as you know, the Ptolemy, that was one of Alexander the Great's 4 generals, which was part of the Greek system that they had back then. For the Ptolemaic system of astronomy, the decline of the feudal system and the growth of commerce, the invention or application of such potentially powerful innovations, right up until they made the the atom bomb, one of the most powerful innovations. The third, I think they call it the third industrial age, when trains and steam trains and factories came about. So it says they're potentially powerful innovations as papers, printing, the mariners, compass, gunpowder. That's what they use to take us down. To the scholars and thinkers of the day, however, it was primarily a time of revival and classical learning and wisdom for a long period of cultural decline and stagnation, which was a lie. There was no cultural decline and stagnation in Europe. These guys came out of the Caucasus Mountains and they came with their gunpowder. That's how they was able to take us down, because they came with their gunpowder and their guns and their powerful innovations. A brief treatment for the Renaissance follows. Right? Europe's history. So, like I said, Renaissance means rebirth. These devils came back into power. So when it says here, and I saw one of his heads, and it was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. That deadly wound was healed during the Renaissance period, around the beginning of the 14th century, which is 1301, up to the 16th. That's when these devils took back full control of Europe. The rebirth of Esau. So it says here, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And that's what they did. Because he came with, why did all the world wonder after the beast? Well, he told you right here in the little thing that we read, right? Because of his powerful innovations. All of his technology, he came with it. The train, the aeroplane, the steamship, the submarine. You think of it. It was Esau that came with all of this shit. That's why all of the world wondered after the beast, because of his powerful innovations. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which is America. They worship and Esau, one and the same thing, because these Edomites rule America. They worship the dragon. They worship these Edomites, especially from America, which gave power unto the beast, gave power unto the European Union and to NATO, because America's the head of NATO, and they worship the beast. They worship these Europeans. Why do you think they're killing themselves on boats to still come to Europe from Africa or Asia or India? They're jumping on flimsy boats to get to Europe because they worship the beast, and they still do today. But the Edomites in the east, the Russians, have had enough of this devil, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So who's able to make war with the beast? The bear, the Russians. That's why they're tightening the noose on this devil by cutting off the gas, cutting down the gas to 20%. And I can see a point where they're going to cut the gas supply down to zero, to complete zero. So lucky family, 1 second. Oh, it's lucky. So someone was at the door, and I'm the only one in at the moment. So I had to go and deal with it. So, They worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. The dragon is America, Esau, the Edomites. The Edomites run America. America gave power unto the beast, the European Union and NATO. America's the head of NATO, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So who is coming to make war with the beast? That's the $6 million question, right? That's the $6 million question. Yes, Cassandra. Yes, lucky. Ahmadabad, that's right. Cassandra was one of the generals as well. Antigonus was one, and Cassandra was one as well. So who was able to make war with the beast? There was a precept I saw up here earlier that was showing us who is going to make war with the beast. Here it is. Ahmadabad. Had it up here. Yeah. So let me bring it out. Ezekiel 38, verse 1. This is who is going to make war with the beast. And the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So he's to choose the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. That's the Russians. The Russians are the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. So who is able, hold on, let's have that. Look up here a minute. Who's able to make war with the beast? The person that's going to make war with the beast is Russia. The chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. He is going to make war. So it says, who is able to make war with the beast? And say, thus says the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog. Because the Most High is not actually for Russia, he's against Russia, all right? But he's going to use, and I've said this many times before, he's going to use the Russians to take down the beast. Or should we say the beginning of that taking down of the beast? He's going to use the Russians to do that. So, hold on. It's what I was looking for here. 1 second. He's going to use the Russians to take down these devils. The precept was coming to mind here. It'll come to me. He says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws. And I will do what? And I will bring thee forth. And this is why I say everything that we see happening is for a reason. This is who's going to make war with the beast. The Lord's going to bring the Russians forth, and all thine army and horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So what is that referring to? That's referring to our modern day weapons. When it says swords, bucklers and shields, that's referring to the modern day weapons that they're going to be carrying. That's what I'm looking for. So there's a big word here. That's it here. Genesis, particular precept I want to go to and show you. Yes, okay. It's Genesis. Genesis. I'll quickly show you something, all right? So, it says here, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them, with shield and helmet, Gomer and all his bands, these are all of the nations that the Russians are going to gather together, the house of Togomar, which are the Turks of the north quarters, and all his bands and many people with him. So this is who's going to make war with the beast. But be thou prepared And they are very prepared, the Russians. This is why I say this war going on in Ukraine, the Russians are getting battle hardened for the war that's going to take place in the valley of Jehoshaphat in the Middle East. They're getting battle hardened, the Russians, in preparation for the real war that's going to take place down in the Middle East. So when it says, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, this is what the Russians are doing right now. They're preparing for themselves. Be thou prepared. How do you prepare for something? You rehearse. You do as much training, as much rehearsal you can do in training you can do, you know, to prepare for the actual show, whatever it is you need to do, or the event, you know, whether it's, if you're an athlete, you do all your training and you make sure all your training exercise and your drills that you do are all to perfection in preparation for the real game. So Russia's doing the same thing. They're preparing for the real battle. So they are be thou prepared. This is where they're preparing themselves in Ukraine. And prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So Russia's going to be a guard unto these nations. Now, what I wanted to show you is that when it talks about the chief prince in Ezekiel 38, all right? I'm going to bring it up on the screen here, all right? So, Ezekiel 38. But it talks about this. We don't need to spend. I just really wanted to bring this out. When it talks about this, is, as we know, the prophecy of Gog and the future invasion of Israel. The future invasion of Israel. This is what you must understand. This is where the war is going to take place. Israel, the least of the flock, which is Israel or Iran, is going to draw out the big players, America and Russia, into that war that's going to kick off in the Middle East. Future invasion. So, when it says here, the chief prince of Meshesh, the word chief, and I know I've showed some of you this before, means what? Means Rosh, all right? The word chief means Rosh, right? Which is another way of saying Russia. I'm going to show you. In the Hebrew, it means Rosh, right? Which goes back to the Russians.
Strong's H, 7218. Ramath Negev. Ramath Negev. Second entry. Rosh.
Rosh. Right. So, is it Genesis? I think it's Genesis 40. It's Genesis 46. Genesis 46. Now, Genesis 46. Verse 21. This is the only other place in the Bible where it shows you the word Rosh, right? And we're going to show you that these devils know that this word here in Ezekiel 38, verse 1, Rosh, right? Chief.
Strong's H, 7218.
Right? That this word that we're reading out here in Ezekiel 38, Rosh, we're going to show you. These devils know that this is talking about Russia. You see, Rosh, it's for the word Rosh. It's the only other place in the Bible. This is the only place in the Bible the word Rosh means. It means head. All right? See that? Rosh. Genesis.
Strong's H, 7220. Rosh. Rosh.
All right? 7220, Rosh. All right? Rosh. The same word here. Rosh. Rosh. So let me show you. Genesis 48, head. Just so you understand that these devils know what he's talking about. Ezekiel 38, verse 2 and 3, which we were just reading, and Ezekiel 39, verse 1, of a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshesh, undoubtedly the Russians. If we were making this shit up, boy, when we're breaking down these scriptures and prophesying. Undoubtedly the Russians, who were mentioned by the Byzantine writers of the 10th century under that name, to the north of Taurus, all right? Undoubtedly the Russians. So, You think these devils don't know that that word Rosh there, the word chief here, which in Ezekiel 38:2, which means Rosh, is talking about the Russians. That's why it quotes Ezekiel 38:2, 38:3, 38:9. The only other place that word is in Genesis 46:21. And it talks about Rosh. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela and Becher and Ashabel and Gera and Naamah, Ehi, and Rosh. This is the only place in the Bible where the word Rosh is spelled out itself like this. These devils know. That's why they got it here. Of a northern nation mentioned with Tubal and Meshech, undoubtedly the Russians, who were mentioned by the Byzantine writers of the 10th century. So they know this word here, Rosh, in Ezekiel, which we just read here, Ezekiel 38:2, the chief prince of Meshech. And the word we look up here is chief. It should have said the Rosh prince of Meshech and Tubal, the Russian prince, but it's got chief, and that word chief is Ros, which means Russians. So these devils know. So when it says who is able to make war with him, it's going to be Rosh, the Russians. And there was given unto him a mouth to speak in great things and blasphemy. This is what we see coming from this white man, particularly in the west, these Edomites in the west. And power was given unto him to continue 42 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy. That's what he did. He opened his mouth in blasphemy. And the 42 months represents 3.5 years, which represents the 350 years of slavery. That's what that's symbolic for. The 350 years of slavery. 42 months is 3.5 years, 3.6 months, 3 years and 6 months, which represents, it symbolically represents the 350 years of slavery. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name as he does every day. He calls on Jesus Christ. You know, he blasphemes the Most High's name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, which is how he got us into slavery. And he continues to make war with the saints even up to this day. This is why they kill you on the streets. They kill you on the streets with impunity. But the actual war was when they put us on those slave ships and brought us to the Americas. And to overcome them, that's what they did to us. And power was given unto him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. So I'm not going to go full into, I don't need to go all to Revelation 30, because I know most of you know we've been through this many times before. But I just wanted to just bring this up to show you that the Russians have put a noose on these devils' necks, right? And that these scholars, they know, when they're reading the Bible, they know that that word there they know that that word there, chief, which means Rosh, they know it actually is talking about the Russians. They know the word Rosh undoubtedly is the Russians. They know that. It's the same word. That's why they quote Ezekiel 38:2 and Ezekiel 39:1 in Genesis. Remember, we're reading from Genesis 46:21. And this is the only place in the Bible where the word Rosh is. So my point is this word here, chief, should have said, in the land of Magog, the Rosh prince of Meshech and Tubal. It should have said the Rosh instead of chief. But the word chief means Rosh, the exact same word that you see here, Rosh, where it's the only place in the Bible it's mentioned. And the devils know, as it says here, undoubtedly the Russians. You understand? When we say that we are the prophets of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, we say this with a humble spirit. When we say the Lord has put the Holy Spirit on us for us to break down prophecy, we say it with a humble spirit. We give the glory and the praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and we give thanks to our teachers who brought us into this truth. But we ourselves, we have to continue doing our due diligence, and the Lord has to see fit to continue putting the Holy Spirit on us for us to continue breaking down the scriptures. But these devils know. They know that this is who's going to make war with the beast? It's going to be the Russians. It's as simple as that. So that tightening of the noose with all the gas thing, it's just part and parcel what's going on. And just like the brother says here, Israelites, we got next. Matthew 12 and 26. And if Satan, if the Russians, the Edomites in the east, cast out Satan, come up against the Edomites in the west, he is divided against himself. How then shall his kingdom stand? And it's funny because I was reading out that scripture over the weekend. How then can his kingdom stand? Simple as that. His kingdom can't stand. Grab this couple more precepts. I'm a bud. Jeremiah 51 and 27. Set you up a standard in the land. Blow the trumpet amongst the nations. Prepare the nations. That's what we see happening. Believe me when I tell you, what Russia's doing in Ukraine, they're preparing their soldiers for the real battle that's going to take place in the Middle East. Prepare the nations against her. Against who? Against Babylon the Great. Babylon the Great is the head of the beast. Call together against her the kingdoms of Arat, Mini, Ashkenaz. Appoint a captain against her. Cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes. Who are the kings of the Medes? The kings of the Medes are the Russians. The land that Russia's in today was also known as the Media. Medea, Media, I believe it was spelled. The kings of the Medes are the Russians. Just like how the land that the Russians were in was once known as Gog and Magog, it was also known as the Medes after the times of Gog and Magog, the times of Japhet and his sons, during the times of the Persian and the Median and the Syrian Empire. It was also known as the Medes. So it says here, the captains thereof and all the rulers thereof and all the lands of his dominion, and the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord Yahweh shall be performed against Babylon, to make the land of Babylon a desolation without an inhabitant. All praises to Yahweh Yahushai. All praises. Obadiah, Amawad Yasharallah, Obadiah 1 and 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. That's what they're going to do, boy. The Israelis are going to bring the Americans to the border. The Iranians are going to bring the Russians and they to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. See, Russia knows that they've been deceived by these Americans and these Europeans. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. There's none understanding these Edomites. But it's like I say, it's game over. It's game over. We just got to keep on watching what's going on in the secular news, what's going on in the world. And remember, as we always say, we reiterate again, before this great battle takes place, the MOTB must go global. I've said this before and I say it again, I believe they're going to create some type of 9/11 event to push the mark of the beast global. That's what the MOTB is, the mark of the beast. I believe they're going to create, it's going to come voluntarily, but I believe they're going to create some type of 9/11 event to make it go global. Something's going to collapse. Some catastrophe is going to happen somewhere. That's what I believe. But that has to come before this war comes in Ezekiel 38 and Ezekiel 39. So, we've nearly come to an hour. I've said what I'm about to say, boy. Russians tighten the noose on the EU, the beast. And we give all the praise and the glory to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. As I always say, I pray you are edified by today's edification. We give all the praises and the glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, who are leading this word in truth and spirit and sincerity in the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. And shalom to my fellow Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters that are being edified by the truth of the scriptures and the prophecies that must be fulfilled. The Most High's will must be fulfilled. As I always say, keep praying, keep safe, and hold on to this truth, brothers and sisters. Until we meet again, shalom, 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 family. All praises.